It's TIE Fighter Renegades, a Star Wars podcast.
Woo! It is time for TIE Fighter Renegades, one of my favorite times of the month. It's a time of the month that I know is a favorite for so many listeners on Zomia ONE, because I, as always, am not alone when I record this show. No matter what's going on in Star Wars, at the very least, I know I'm not alone in any of it, because I am here with my man, my brother, Robin Freebeard. What's up, man?
Yep, Dub.
Yeah. Cue the music. Wait,
and the original music. Not that new age shit.
No, celebrate the love. What a great message to end the Star Wars trilogy or the Star Wars saga off with, even though we don't know what the next or how the saga is really going to end
when
it comes up. But the original. So I was just going to ask you the question. I was going to be like, so, really, I don't think we ever asked this. Which version, which ending of Return of the Jedi does Rob like better? Do you like the special edition version with the or the celebrate the love, the ubnub? But I guess we got that answer.
That's my. I mean, I wasn't always of that opinion when the special editions came out. I did like the new ending.
Just to see Coruscant.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Same here.
Yep.
That's exactly the same.
Yep.
Yes.
And seeing them knocking down the statue of Emperor Palpatine, that was cool.
Yep.
I'll give it that. And I don't hate the music at the end of the special edition, but Yub Nub is way better. And maybe that's, nostalgia talking, but that doesn't really matter. I love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think nostalgia is a completely valid thing, but yeah, no, I agree with you. And actually, I was the same way, where for so long, I was of the opinion, I loved seeing Bespin again, seeing, all these worlds, and then finally seeing Coruscant. People don't know, that was the first time we ever really got to see Coruscant.
Right.
Back in 97. And that was a big fucking deal.
And we also got to see the Outrider taking off from Tatooine.
Yes.
Which kind of gave legitimacy to Shadows of the Empire.
Yep, and one of the improvements that would come along with, I think either the DVD or Blu-ray releases, they would show Naboo later on. They would include that in that end sequence, which I thought was a nice touch. But I got to tell you, when if I'm listening to Star Wars soundtracks, which I do often, when Yub Nub, when Celebrate the Love comes on, I have a grin ear to fucking ear instantaneously every time just that drum roll starts hitting, and it's the very cheesy Ewok singing. I can't argue with that. There are so few things that make me feel like that that's definitely the superior now, in my opinion.
Something a lot of people don't talk about too is like the soundtrack for Return of the Jedi was just phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the whole thing.
Yep. Luke and Leia, that symphonic suite is I mean, total chills.
In fact, I remember when I was younger, when you'd be sitting in the movie theater before the show starts and they didn't have commercials playing the whole time.
Right.
And it would just be and they'd have music playing and it was the Ewok song, the do 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 do. And I just that always made me so happy when I was younger. Kind of just sitting in the theater and just kind of bouncing around to the Ewok song.
Yeah. No, that was great. I totally agree. Return of the Jedi, I mean, that's my favorite Star Wars film still to this day. The soundtrack was a major part of that choice. Even the crescendo you get when Vader's basically on fire, a funeral pyre for a Jedi or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the name of it, is probably the most powerful composition I think John Williams may have ever done. I mean, it's short, but it just hits that crescendo.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of sullied because, we don't have Lapty Neck anymore. We have to deal with the worst moment. Frankly, it's worse than Canto Bight. It is worse than Canto Bight. The Jedi Rock sequence in Return of the Jedi is absolutely the worst moment in Star Wars ever. What do you got?
I'm glad you bring up Lapty Neck because there is a lost piece of Star Wars music out there that I think you can only find in the documentary, what is it, from Star Wars to Jedi or something like that, where they're singing Lapty Neck, but it's in English.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I bet I've seen that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's in there, and that's the only place where you'll ever hear it. but it's
Wow.
never been released on a CD or soundtrack of any kind. But there is a version of Laptee Neck with English lyrics, and it's actually pretty cool.
Do you remember any of the lyrics? It's fine if you don't.
No, I
Okay.
don't remember. But I remember when like when you hear this, when you're watching this documentary, I'm like, holy shit! And it was just like it blew my mind when I was a kid.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna have to look for that because yeah, I mean, and that's a fun song. So like the disco, that's effectively a disco song, even though you don't really hear it in the cut of the movie. And you can hear a full like 4-minute version of it on the Star Wars anthology set. It's on the bonus disc, I think, in that. And that came out in the 90s. And I listened to that. I mean, I have no problem. I never turn that off when it comes on. It's like, sure, what the fuck? I mean, it's so sleazy. It's cool. With English lyrics, that's got to be a lot of fun. So, and if we think of it, we'll put the link in the show notes for that one. But yeah, Jedi rocks. What a. And I defend the special editions all the time. I think they're great. But that's the one thing where I'm like, no, that decision was just flat out horrible to do Jedi. Yeah. I've never heard anyone say they liked it. I mean,
yeah, I don't think we needed the Vader saying no either.
Yeah, I'm still okay with that even, but I get it.
I'm okay, but I just don't think it was necessary.
Yeah, it doesn't really add anything. I can admit that. Yeah, I can admit that. Yeah, fair enough. Well, anyway, speaking of something that we well, here we go. We do this usually either at the beginning or the end of the show, and lately for the past few months it's been the end of the show. But I want to do it at the beginning this time around because we have a lot of little reviews to get into in this episode of TIE Fighter Renegades, including we have 2 new trailers for the new hotness coming up over the next couple months. That being, of course, the trailer for The Mandalorian and Episode 9 of Star Wars. How do you? Give me a barometer. Give me a thermometer check. How are you feeling, Rob, right now about Star Wars? We got excitement, we got depression. I mean, what are you feeling right now?
You know what? If I just focus on the things that I am looking forward to, I'm really excited about Star Wars.
Okay.
But Zomia ONE Underground members will know about this because they'll listen if they've listened to the most recent Q&A. But I definitely echo your feelings about how Star Wars feels very overwhelming.
Yeah.
At times, and there's just too much material. If like you can't keep up with all of it. So like if I try to follow everything that's going on with Star Wars, it gets to the point where it becomes a chore.
Yeah. So basically I had said that like I was falling out of love with Star Wars and I was beginning to loathe it because I am taking all of this in, because I love Star Wars first and foremost. Like, I mean, that's why I'm doing it. And yeah, it is a bit much, but what you are excited for has you really excited.
Yeah, exactly. But this also leads to, like I want to put a question out to the audience, the people who listen to TIE Fighter Renegades. If you haven't listened to the recent Q&A, I'd say go back right now and listen to that and hear what Brian has to say. And then I want you to answer a question for us. This is it. Do you think it's necessary for us to review all of the content that's coming out for Star Wars? And if that is something you want us to do, we want you to let us know. If it's not, and you would rather focus on the stuff that we're passionate about and not have to read every book, every comic, every piece of minutiae in the Star Wars universe, let us know. Yeah. This is, this show here is for you guys, and we want you to help determine the content of the show. So, tell us whether or not Brian needs a break from from reading every single Star Wars book that ever comes out, because I am more discriminating.
Yeah.
And I've said before, like Brian often takes one for the team, and the fact that he goes and he consumes content that I already know is going to be trash.
Yeah. I mean, And yes, I want people to reach out, and I second all of those sentiments, Rob. And you can get in touch with us on Twitter, or you can email me, bbs@sovryntech.com. You take your pick of how you want to get in touch and let us know. Or you can even comment right on the Podbean app if you want to do it there. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with us to let us know. I'd like to know that too. I mean, part of it is, though, is that, like, I would have never touched that. Now, we're going to review another Galaxy's Edge book here in this episode, but I would have never touched that Black Spire book with a 10-foot pole if I didn't have that attitude of, well, I read everything Star Wars,
Right.
And I walked away from that like, wow, that was really good. Like, I enjoyed the hell out of that. Granted, if I didn't read it, would I feel like I'm missing a whole lot? Does it color the Star Wars universe in any serious way? Not really. So I don't know. I'm of two minds on it, where I'm like, yeah, I get it, that I don't have to read this stuff, and ultimately it doesn't add in a lot. And we're probably going to talk about this more as we go through our topics this month. But then at the same time, like, I feel like, oh shit, I would have missed that. I don't know. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, the reason why I want to put it to the questioners is I want them to help us determine what we should be focusing on.
Fair enough.
Like we often use our own judgment, but if it gets to the point where doing this show feels like a chore because of all the research that we have to do to pull it off, then that's going to create substandard content for you guys, and we don't want that.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, fair enough. That's good. Yeah, so do get in touch with us on that, and I'm very intrigued to hear what people say. So and whatever you say is fine. Like, I mean, just call it, and yeah. So okay, so so what you're excited for, you have excitement around, but if in the broader context, you would just feel overwhelmed with what's going on with Star Wars.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll second that motion. I'm feeling a little optimistic because I have so much riding on episode 9, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. I have so much riding on that as to how I'm going to feel about Star Wars overall. But I mean, like, we'll talk about Mandalorian. There are things that definitely have me excited. I'll put it that way. So I guess I'm feeling, I'm wading ankle deep in the waters of Star Wars right now, and I'm very, very skittish to take a dive right now. So I guess that's where I sit on it. But why don't we go ahead and start talking this stuff up? Maybe these are things that we're excited for. Maybe they are not. But we did get a episode 9 Rise of Skywalker trailer during... teenage me would be really pissed off about this. During a football game.
No, be pissed off. Yes, you should be. We all should be.
Yeah, there's so, oh man.
Let us have it, man. Let us have it.
I could start unloading right now, but it kind of speaks to a bigger subject, I think, that's going to just take shape throughout this episode. Because the fact that trailer came out during Monday Night Football tells you exactly who they're going after. Now, we know, and the numbers are in, like, when you do a Super Bowl ad and all this stuff, okay, it's the fucking Super Bowl. Everybody gets together, even if they care about football or not. People are over at somebody's house to get some good food or some shit, and I mean, yes, it's crazy the amount of people that watch the Super Bowl every year. And there are plenty of people, you can ask them point blank, do you watch this? Why are you watching the Super Bowl? They will tell you it's for the commercials. And I believe them. I think that that's absolutely true. I do not believe that Monday Night Football numbers are anywhere remotely near that. Okay, so when you are putting, not on the Super Bowl, that's a completely separate entity and an oddity and phenomena. Okay, when you are putting a commercial in the middle of just some stupid Monday Night Football game, that tells you who you're going after. And you know who they're not going after? They're not going after me, Mr. Longtime fucking buys and reads every goddamn thing that you put out there.
Exactly.
You're not interested in appealing and appeasing me. And I'm the person that, if you have a 100-year plan, Uncle Bob, okay, over at Disney for what Star Wars is going to be, you want my kind of people that are going to live that long, that are not live 100 years, but I mean, that are going to be around for the long haul, who have been around for the long haul. You're supposed to appease me, and you're not fucking appeasing me. And they even timed, this is even worse, they even timed the selling of the tickets
That's
for
the worst
episode
part
9.
of it. That is
Yes!
the worst part of it. That you're forcing me to watch a goddamn football game
The
to
glass
get good tickets.
Yeah.
And okay. I want people to understand. I don't have anything against people who like football or jocks or anything like that. I've processed that. I've dealt that. But I'm telling you is that when we were younger, you were nerd or you were jock.
Right.
You usually weren't both. And I did have friends that were both, but they were far and few between. And it was usually the jocks who had a problem with people liking Star Wars or
Right.
Star Trek and things like that. And that's the crowd you're going after with these goddamn football ticket sales and trailers. Okay? And it's a slap in the face to everybody who was faithful to Star Wars throughout those many long years when there really wasn't much of a franchise.
Yeah.
To have to put up with this shit.
Yeah, we don't need this. We already have May the 4th. Like,
No,
we have...
Not only do we not need it, this is the opposite of what we need. This is exactly the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and no matter how good the trailer or bad or whatever, because we'll talk about that, the trailer actually was. This just says so much about Disney's stewardship. And that's partly why, like, you were referencing the Q&A and some other things, why, like, I I'm almost getting to the point of hating Star Wars because the people in charge of it are just fucking it up. And not just that they're fucking it up, but they are clearly not caring about the generation or about the people that made Star Wars worthwhile to them in the first place, that made Star Wars something that still had cachet and staying power. Well,
they're compounding their failures. Because you know what it is because they, like with Force Awakens, they thought that's the crowd they were appealing to with that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's their failure that they didn't deliver on something that was actually worthwhile and enjoyable.
Right.
But the way they see it from their perspective is oh, well, the old school originally trilogy fans, didn't support us. We tried to make a movie for them and they didn't like it. So why bother? Let's go for, this mass market appeal crap.
It's such a mistake, it's
like I said, it's not just a mistake. It's making a mistake and then doubling down on where you got it wrong.
Right. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, I think we're going to continue to comment on this fact throughout this episode. Like, this is going to be a play on a theme here. But I mean, like, the ticket sale thing was really insane. Like, that should not have, whatever happened to the fun of, like, getting in line and everything to go buy the tickets? And,
well, I mean, yeah, I think that's dead, unfortunately.
Because of smartphones.
Yeah, that's just the way things. That's and that's kind of a greater conversation that Sovereign Tech addresses on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was thinking that same thing. And in fact, I thought that when they sold tickets for the last one, for The Last Jedi, we had the same problem. And I've had to come to terms and accept the fact that that's just not part of the movie-going experience anymore. And if theater owners want to look to why people are staying home and watching Netflix and not going out to movies as much, well, maybe you should consider some of these things about, the kind of audience, like if the theater going experience is going to become a niche thing, then you need to start appealing to the people who are really about going to movies and sitting down in a theater and watching a movie that way.
Yeah. I mean, there were whole articles about how to get the tickets, and I'm thinking, there's websites covering this shit of how to do it.
No, I think there was an article from Lifehacker about how to get good tickets. And the fact that that article exists at all is a huge red flag that there's a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if that was like, and I'm worried that it's even bigger than just the fact. I mean, that's a problem in and of itself, and it shows a problem with with distribution among other things. But if it speaks to like, if that was overall planned, where, okay, you're going to give our movie a good review when this comes out because we're going to give you a ton of ad impressions because we're going to give you the inside scoop of when this is going to go live. And I like it just, I don't know. I'm worried that there's like so much money and so many hands they have to get a piece. There's so many hands in this pie that there's no pie left at the end of the day. And it's really, really nasty. I don't know. There's a lot of...
I mean, the biggest piece of pie is for, like Google AdSense and bullshit like that, Yeah. I mean, that's who's making the money here.
Yeah, you're totally on. There's something so wrong with all of this, the way that this went down. So, but why don't we go ahead and talk about the trailer itself, which was 2 minutes or so, 2 minutes and change, a fairly short trailer, I feel. So, well, I guess I'll ask you first. I mean, what did you think of it, Rob? I mean, when you caught it, I assume you watched it on YouTube, and I mean, at least that they did put it out on YouTube fairly shortly after it premiered on Monday Night Football, of all goddamn things. But what did you think?
It was a good trailer.
Sure.
I didn't have any problems with it. I'm staying with my position that I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not pre-deciding about how I'm going to feel about this movie. I'm not going to go into it expecting something truly great. I'm not going into it thinking that it's going to be terrible either. Right. And I don't see anything in that trailer that is shifting me in either direction.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. I mean, I thought the trailer itself, taken without context, was a pretty good trailer. I mean, it gets some blood flowing, I suppose. I think your point, though, that it doesn't shift you either way exactly is a salient one, though, to how I feel about it. Like, I still don't know what the fuck this movie's about.
Right.
And based on what we have talked about in the past on TFR and the news that we get, like of how they're editing on the fly, there's reports, I've heard reports that they are still editing it right now, and so a part of me, when I saw that trailer, now bringing in some context with my, Star Wars fandom, I'm like, shit, is this movie even done? And in fact, do they even know what this movie's about?
You read my mind. Because here's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Is that in the making of this movie, they, quote, listen to the fans, and they have somewhere a list of beats that they have to hit in this movie in order to appease fans. And they went ahead and they hit all those beats, yet somewhere along the line, they forgot to actually make a movie that was coherent and made sense.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Now, to be fair, and I want to bring this up because I know this history well, and that is that I know that the original Star Wars, A New Hope, was in the editing room like pretty much up until release in May, like up to the day almost. Like the final copy was getting like cut and edited. And I mean, I understand that. So, but look, folks, this is not 1977.
Right.
Okay?
This is an entirely different beast. I mean, that there were no expectations back then. Yeah.
Yeah. This is something where Disney has to know what's on the line. The movie industry obviously knows how to make blockbusters now. George Lucas in 77 and his wife, who deserves most of the credit, they were treading very new ground, even though it was a remix of a lot of different ideas, Kurosawa and so on. They were treading very new ground with what they were doing here. Okay. New special effects ground. I mean, you have ILM come out of it, all this, blah, blah, blah. All right. That is not today. That is not the situation now. You do not have that excuse for why your movie is still in editing or in production or whatever that's going on. So this trailer, as good and as cool moments as there were, I mean, that Star Destroyer coming out looked, nuts, coming out of the water. there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of beats in it where it's like, okay, wow, that looks really cool. Oh, that looks epic, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm walking away from it and I'm going, I don't know what this movie's about. And again, then when I give it the greater context of Star Wars news and I go, I don't think they know what this movie's about, like I said earlier. Mm-hmm. And that is so terrifying because, again, I am riding on episode 9. It has to be, at the very least, good. Okay? It has to be, at the very least, good for me to even want to really continue to be a hardcore Star Wars fan.
Well, man.
What do you got?
I mean, like, I really want. I hope you're right. But I really hope that you temper your expectations. Because that's too much to ride.
But it shouldn't be for Star Wars.
I know. Well,
all you need is a movie. You know, I mean, Star Wars was 3 movies for us for decades. That's all it was.
But do they know that?
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they have a goddamn clue.
And here's the thing, too, is I don't even think that they need to know that. Because if the Last Jedi is any proof, like the way that people talk about it on Twitter, like, apparently there's people that just absolutely love this movie, and it's like one of the best movies in the entire franchise.
Yeah,
so,
I call it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time believing it, but I honestly think some of these people are sincere. I really do.
Maybe. I don't know. There's like, we watch the Star Wars show. I don't know why we do. It's just native advertising, but we do. And like, they had some band on a few episodes ago.
Right.
Which was totally out of place. And this gal, all due respect to her, she just says, oh yeah, The Last Jedi, who's like the lead singer for this, I don't know, band that I guess is popular. Okay, maybe today. Next month, we'll see. But she just comes right down and she says, oh yeah, The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars film. I'm like, shut your mouth. They're, like, that's just not, and maybe we talked about this in the last episode, because that's just not possible. They can't, we did talk about this. I remember myself getting just as worked up, saying that that's just not possible. You can like that movie, fine. To say it's your favorite Star Wars film, that's fucking insane. That's just, that's totally out of league. I can't picture that. But, I don't know. We could get sidetracked in a million conversations.
Like I said, I do think some of these people are genuinely sincere. I don't think they realize necessarily why it's their favorite movie. Yeah. But I do think some of them are genuinely sincere about The Last Jedi being their favorite Star Wars movie.
Jesus Christ. I'm not an exclusionary guy.
I think we have to accept that. I think we really have to accept that moving forward. We don't have to like it.
Yeah. I mean, I can handle, what was his name? Which we'll talk about Mandalorian in a second.
Favreau?
Yeah, Jon Favreau. He came out and says, oh yeah, I like the holiday special fine. I think I might make another one or something like that. Like, that doesn't even sound crazy to me. You know, and I think people kind of took him out of context. But that I hear that, I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe it did, you know, because if that was the only Star Wars you had at the time in 78, like, okay, fine. I get it. Like, you probably love the fuck out of that, as horrible as it may be. Okay, go ahead.
Not only that, it's like, you know, like you watch like the Star Wars show, and they've kind of turned it, the holiday special, into one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's so bad, it's good.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand that.
Yeah, same. I can understand that statement as much as even George Lucas wants to forget that thing ever fucking existed and said he wanted every copy burned. I can understand that. I cannot understand the statement, The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie ever made. That is goddamn nuts. Like, that whole, anyway. Okay. All right. We need to move on from this. So episode 9, and I hear you, you know, that, yeah, I need to temper my expectations, but oh man, I don't know. There's so, I mean, the other thing is that there's so much, like you referenced earlier, some of like the conversations as I've been having on Zomia ONE overall, there's so much wrong with the entertainment industry today. And Star Wars is very much the barometer of that for me. And so if this screws up, I mean, I don't know. I can't change my mind on it. There's just, there's a lot riding on this, but go ahead.
You know, I'm almost like, so, you know, there's that moment in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke leaves Dagobah.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan says, "That boy was our last hope." And Yoda says, "No, there's another."
Yeah.
Like, so I can imagine a future, and I don't know how many years from now this will be, but someday, eventually, in one form or another, I don't know if it's going to be a comic book or an animated thing or whatever, but we're going to get, in some form, the George Lucas version of the sequel trilogy. Just like we got the, like Dark Horse put out the original script treatment of the first Star Wars. Star Wars.
Right.
Eventually, we're going to get that in one form or another. There's no way Disney's going to let that happen within the next year or two. Mm-hmm. But further down the future, I see that being a possibility. And I suspect, as much as people hate that idea right now and think that, oh, well, you know, no, it's going to be horrible because George Lucas, you know, already, you know, sullied Star Wars when he did the prequels, which, whatever. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. But you go back and look at the prequels now, and I think the generally people have a much more favorable opinion of it now and are giving it, you know, the praise that it's due.
Sure. I mean, at least they're not Marvel movies, you know.
Yeah,
they sure as fuck ain't predictable.
Right.
Not
right.
even close.
Exactly. So as much as you may think you don't want that right now, maybe in another 10 years, that'll be something that you'll be willing to give a chance and accept and look at. And I do think that will come out someday in one form or another, whether it's through Disney or not.
Yeah, I was going to say, or not.
And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'll second all of that, and I am fully supportive of the or not. I mean, like, if some of you Bitcoin billionaires out there want to do something great for humanity, I think even just like putting together a CGI animated version of, you know, of George Lucas's trilogy would be pretty fucking awesome, you know, and throw and get that out there. Somebody fucking put that together. Because
we've talked about this before, and there's some, what little we've learned about it, there's some great ideas in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But they're not marketable, or at least not in terms that make the Star Wars into a eternal franchise that will just continually pump out content every year from now to eternity.
Yeah, you're certainly not going to win over the Monday Night Football fans with that, probably. But I say, well, fucking good riddance. So if I see anybody wearing a Green Bay Packers shirt going into that, you know, into the theater. All right. Yeah, fair enough. And I hope to see that as well. I really do. So, okay, well, so I think we're both just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's a trailer. That's something that, you know, I cannot fathom for a second. Again, I'm just going to just end it off with this. I cannot fathom why that trailer had to wait until October of 2019, 2 months before the movie comes out, because it doesn't really show anything, you know. Yeah. I mean, like, or it doesn't, there's no giveaways. The closest giveaway you get is there's that shattered statue that it looks like Rey and Kylo are punching. That
I think it's the podium that Darth Vader's helmet sits on.
Okay. So, I mean, that looks like maybe hinting that they are going to join forces finally.
Yeah. There's also a lot of people pointing out that Rey's holding a dagger during that scene, and that they think it's the dagger of Mortis, which, I mean, that would be cool. And I'm all for that. But I think if you're generally like you're actually expecting that to happen, you're probably fooling yourself, because I don't see any way in hell that Disney is going to tie in with something as minor. And this is not a judgment on the Clone Wars, but as minor connection as the Clone Wars is, because 90% of the people that are going to go see The Rise of Skywalker have not watched the Clone Wars and never will.
Yeah. I mean, they'll put in, like, we saw the ghost from Rebels in the trailer, which that was like the thing that got me the most excited. I'm like, oh, good, Hera's going to be there, so at least somebody's going to be able to kick some ass.
Well, we don't know that. Honestly, I think the only reason that's there is because they have a CGI asset because they made it for Rogue One.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we need to like pull out all the stops and throw in every ship that's ever existed in the Rebel Alliance ever.
Yeah,
and
so toss in a VX-100.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't even know if it's necessarily the Ghost. It probably is, but
nice.
Understand the only reason it's there is to fill in the shot.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. And actually, I'm glad we got to this. I mean, I agree with you on that there's no way, as ironically as important, you could almost argue the Mortis trilogy is the most important story.
Yes.
In Star Wars, like just flat out. You know, it is dealing with the very core of what Star Wars is, the Force.
Yes,
and everything. Yeah.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. Is like George Lucas's sequel trilogy definitely would have dealt with all the stuff that came up in the Mortis trilogy.
Yeah.
It would be a core part of the entire trilogy.
Even Rebels tried to touch on it. I mean, we did get references to Mortis in that.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, there is no way J.J. Abrams, and this speaks to a huge problem that I have with production in Star Wars in general, is that they are not making anybody involved, save Filoni, who's probably the only one that cares. They're not making anybody read any of the extraneous comics, books, whatever fucking content out there. They have no goddamn clue about it, and they're just going in and making whatever movie they want, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like, J.J. Abrams claims to be this huge Star Wars fan, but I would literally be shocked to find out if he's ever watched Clone Wars. I seriously doubt it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. I think that's a big part of why there's a copyright end to this, but then also the reason that we saw nothing except for X-Wings and a couple other notes, anything familiar in Force Awakens from Star Wars. Like, you know, we didn't see any familiar aliens. We didn't see any familiar. It's because he just doesn't fucking know. So he just makes shit up, you know, and runs with it.
It's a good point. I was actually shocked to see that they had a Y-Wing in the trailer.
Yeah. Agreed.
And here again, I think it is just they're trying to throw as many assets as they have already prepared into this movie.
Yeah. No, agreed.
Like if they hadn't made Rogue One, all of those ships, half of those ships wouldn't be in there because they were all assets that were created, digital assets that were created for Rogue One.
Right. Yeah. Sadly, I imagine that's the case as well. That's a great point to bring up. Well, anyway, there's nothing else really. I don't know. Again, the trailer, I don't know what the fuck those Space Forces were doing riding along a Star Destroyer. I mean, there's just like this wacky ass shit.
Yeah.
That maybe it'll make sense. Go ahead.
And just to further back that, I mean, there's a reason why the Star Destroyers that you see in these trailers are the ISD-1s. Because those were the assets that they created for Rogue One. they didn't create digital versions of the ISD-2.
You know, I think Star Wars is still paying for Solo. The movie is the most expensive movie ever made. People don't realize that. And the reason is because it had to get made twice.
Yeah.
Now, previously, the film that held that record was Cleopatra, because that movie got made 3 times. You know, and Solo is a very expensive film. Yeah, that bill's still probably getting paid. I mean, because that movie sure as fuck didn't make that money.
I don't know if you saw it, but like the Kasdan recently came out and said that they blew it with that movie.
Yeah.
And that he's done with Star Wars. Like they've delivered Star Wars, literally they've delivered Star Wars scripts to his door and he sent them back and refused to read them.
I don't blame him.
I mean, like it's unfortunate, but yeah, Solo didn't just burn bridges with the fans; it burned bridges with the people who work on these movies.
Yeah, because it didn't save The Last Jedi. I mean, it just didn't. It just compounded. It just made things worse. Fucking A. You know, all right, we got to talk about something good. we got to change this up because this is not helping. not the present train that I'm riding on. It is not helping at all. But okay, so we got another trailer. This one, amazingly, was not on Monday Night Football. At least I don't think it was. Probably because this wouldn't appeal to Monday Night Football fans. Because you know what? I watched this fucking trailer and I'll say it out straight. This appealed to the Star Wars fan in me, and I am talking about The Mandalorian coming out on Disney Plus starting November 12th. You know, this is another trailer that was a couple minutes, and I watched it, and I was, you know, I I think there was a point where maybe I even chuckled a little bit, and I had a great time. And I got exactly what some things I've wanted out of Star Wars for a very long time, and it felt fucking Star Wars.
Yeah.
Rob, what did you think about the Mandalorian trailer?
Absolutely. I 100% echo all those sentiments. In fact, a friend of mine said that after they watched the trailer, she said that was the most Star Wars looking thing that I've seen since the original trilogy.
Yeah, and not just because I got to see Trandoshans and shit either. I mean, like just felt it felt like fucking Star Wars.
And you know why? It is because they've finally gone back and acknowledged something about Star Wars that has been ignored for a long time, and they're leaning hard in on this Western angle that was in the original trilogy, the old West, style, spaghetti Western style story and feeling and just aesthetic. And they're leaning hard on this, and it's great. It looks fantastic. It's something that like I said, it wasn't really a part of the prequel trilogy. It certainly hasn't been seen in the sequel trilogy. And now they're finally bringing about this. And I'm glad to see that they're, and I credit a lot of this to Favreau and Filoni, because I think they are real true Star Wars fans. And they, they're paying homage to, stuff that, made Star Wars truly, wonderful and fantastic that we've all kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I think really Filoni and Favreau's involvement is what, and Favreau knows, it's funny. I think we talked about maybe this last month as well. Favreau did that big, long interview. Maybe it was in Hollywood Reporter or Vanity. And he recognized a lot of the things we've talked about, the problems in Hollywood and everything. And he kind of brought that up. So I think he's very aware. I think, and of course we know Filoni is, he just nobody. Empire. Yeah, he does Star Wars like Star Wars is meant to be done, and always has. And yeah, I agree. That's the big reason here. I mean, there's nothing in this trailer that I didn't like. Everything was right on what I was wanting to see. Everything felt good. It definitely feels like, this is what Boba Fett was supposed to be, and that's fine, because Boba Fett turned into something that I don't think anybody imagined he would be if you grew up in the 80s and 90s. I like everything I see here. And
go ahead. The Werner Herzog, monologue was nice. That was so on point.
Yep.
Just a great piece of writing. And so expertly delivered. Yeah.
You've got all the right people involved in this. Everybody's looking good. Gina Carano looked, she was blasting away, having a good time. I love it. I love it. I saw that and I was like, whew. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is something good.
Right. Yeah.
Because I was sweating. And I'm also surprised, like, there is no tie-in material to this. I'm actually blown away by that. No comics, no books, nothing tying into The Mandalorian.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I don't know what's behind that, other than they have maybe some major reveals that they want to do.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to come out after the fact.
Sure.
I feel like they're trying to, like, as much as they're advertising and promoting it, they're trying to keep an air of mystery about this series, and they're trying to spring it upon people. So if they had tie-in material come out beforehand, then I think it'd be playing their hand too much.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that that makes sense. That's what's going on. So I'll take that. That's fine. But I would like some, if it actually ends up being as great as it is, I'll take some tie-in material. I'd like to read some good comics again and a few more good books. But anyway, any other comments on the Mandalorian trailer?
I'm so glad it exists.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the best thing going on in Star Wars.
And right, and I'm glad that Disney's taking it seriously, because honestly, I think they have more writing on the Mandalorian than they do Episode 9, because I think they in large part see Disney Plus as the future of their business.
Yes, that is true.
Whereas movies have always been around, and it's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think they do see their streaming service as the future. I mean, and they're in a great position because streaming services are dropping right and left. So if they want to be one of the ones standing tall, they're one of the ones that could really do it, whether we like it or not. Streaming services, I should say, or Disney for that matter, because it's certainly that's a hell of a love-hate relationship I've had my whole life.
Oh,
so, yeah. Yeah, no, so looking forward to this. Of course, we will be reviewing episodes of that come next TIE Fighter Renegades, because that'll be premiering, amazingly, in just a few days. Very excited for this. So, all right, let's shift things up a bit and talk about some other news. And maybe it'll be actually some more good news as far as things coming down the pike. So I guess covering a little more good news, though this is going to bleed nicely into actually what I also think is good news, but maybe for some other people they think it's not. But regardless, I think this is, and this is something that I know, Rob, you have championed and brought up in the past when Disney or Lucasfilm has announced new creative talent coming in, new directors, and so on. And every time there is a certain segment of the population that seems to get the snub, that being women. And fortunately, this time around, for something that I think also a lot of people are very excited for, myself included, I think you are as well, Rob, about the Obi-Wan series that we are going to be getting on Disney Plus. And come to find out that Deborah Chow is going to be behind this. And I just think this is brilliant. Like, what a great move. To get her involved. What you got any thoughts on this one, Rob?
No, I mean, this is exactly the right move. I mean, admittedly long overdue.
Yeah, I could think of a lot of things. I mean, I would love to have had, especially since Rey is the central character, or supposed to be the central character. Oh boy, I have comments I want to make about that. But since Rey's since she's supposed to be the central character of the new of the sequel trilogy, it would have been nice to have a female director, and writer involved more in the process. And that didn't necessarily happen. And I think that people are absolutely right in bringing up, like, why are we having more white dudes directing more of our stuff all the time? And I get it. And so having Deborah Chow come on board for Obi-Wan, it just adds on to, this is starting to look right. I did see a recent story, I don't know if you caught this too, Rob, that Ewan McGregor apparently was very disappointed that he's had to keep his mouth shut that he had to keep quiet about the Obi-Wan deal for so long.
Yeah, I heard that it wasn't so much that he was disappointed, but he was very relieved that the cat was finally out of the bag. Because he essentially had to lie for I guess it's been in the work for 4 years. Yeah. Which is wow. What a long time to have to hold on to something like that.
Yeah, because there's no bad time to make that announcement, that you're doing something that every Star Wars fan pretty much wants. But then at the same time, there's plenty of times where we really could have used that news. Why not open your mouths and, or why not, let the cat out of the bag and tell us. But so far, go ahead.
I have my theories as to that. And it's certainly going to come up in another thing we're going to talk about. And I also, if this is the case, it is also the right move in that hopefully they're making these announcements when there's actual work being done and people have actually committed to doing that work, as opposed to making these announcements about far off future projects that people end up either quitting or being fired from.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that is going to play into, more or less our next topic. But we're going to get to see, whether or not people should have justified confidence in what Deborah Chow can do. She did direct at least one episode, I think, of The Mandalorian. Two. Okay, she's done two. And I think she was involved with Jessica Jones. Bottom line is that my understanding of her work is that the people that are into those sorts of things love it. So great. I'll take that.
She's gotten around. She's worked on American Gods, Man in the High Castle, Jessica Jones, like you said,
Yeah.
Walking Dead. So yeah, I mean she's not a newcomer. You know, she's
No,
not like
right.
she's not untested talent. She definitely she knows how to do her job, obviously. And like I said, this is definitely it's a good start. It's a move in the right direction.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and all I can say is I hope Disney continues to you know make these kinds of decisions and not think that, well, you know, we've appeased the people that were calling for, you know, non-white male directors and now we can, you know, we filled our quota. No, you keep on at it, keep doing it.
Yeah. Keep these opportunities going, because these are people who think outside of the box. So, well, something that I actually consider to also be good news, even though I think there's a lot of people who might be disappointed, but I don't fucking care. So this came out of, and this was the talk of the town for a good couple days now. And this is very fresh news, though, because it was announced, I think, October 28th, 2019. So just a couple days ago. But here it is. Here's the headline from the Hollywood Reporter: Star Wars shocker. I love it. It's like, what is this, Weekly World News? This is so great.
I know.
Where's the page 5 girl while we're at it? I mean, come on. But Star Wars shocker. Yeah. Those like, I mean, no one could see the video, but Rob just held up the shocker. Yeah, here's the Star Wars shocker for you. But to finish off that headline, Star Wars shocker: Game of Thrones duo quits planned trilogy. And who are they talking about? None other than Benioff and Weiss, the guys, the supposed masterminds behind the biggest fucking production in history, which I call bullshit on, but whatever. But yeah, the minds behind Game of Thrones, who was this 2 years ago now or a year ago now when they were announced that they were going to have a Star Wars trilogy.
I thought it was it's only been like a year.
Yeah. All right. It's been a year. So they were supposed to have, I mean, and even just, there was recent news about it happening. Their first movie was going to come out in like 2022, I think. But they have, so there's a lot of theories around this of what really happened. Did they walk away? Did Disney fire them? Basically what's being said is that, you know, they're trying to pass it off on the third man, meaning that it's nobody's fault. It's just going to conflict with their Netflix contract for what they're producing for Netflix. That's kind of the claim going on.
That doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Because they had the Star Wars contract long before they had the Netflix contract. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so many places to go with this. Like, on one hand, kind of like you said with Kasdan, where he's like, oh, you couldn't sell me on a Star Wars script if you tried. Like, it's just not going to happen. And there's a part of me that wonders if Benioff and Weiss are like, oh, we're getting away from the sinking ship. But then, I mean, that's believable. But then it's also believable that Lucasfilm might think, actually, you know, all these Gen Xer directors that we've been bringing in, this has not gone over well with the fans. You know, like we're in trouble with our production.
Yeah, Benioff and Weiss are the sinking ship.
Yeah, and so I'm leaning more towards Lucasfilm told them to take a hike,
right?
As compared to that Benioff and Weiss quit because they thought it'd be bad for their career or something. I still think that you can get away with saying that Star Wars is about the biggest thing you could possibly do. So why would somebody walk away from that?
The way I imagine it in my head is like Benioff and Weiss came to, you know, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and said, hey, we know we said that we were going to do this thing for you guys, but we got this other thing that we really want to work on. And the immediate response from them was, oh gosh, we thought you would never ask. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, I could picture that. I mean, you know, the official word Kathleen Kennedy put out there is that, yeah, we, you know, once they're done with their busy schedule, we hope to work with them again. But I mean, that's just fucking, you know, that's business or that's industry platitudes. That's all. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, they have to put lipstick on the pig to make this look at least somewhat cordial.
Yeah. But I do wonder how far along this was going, because Kathleen Kennedy earlier this year was talking about, yes, we're working on Knights of the Old Republic stuff. And everybody basically figured that they would give it to Benioff and Weiss.
Right.
And I mean, well, I guess that's, I don't know if any of that, bottom line being out of all of this, certainly, is that any plans that Lucasfilm says that they have are subject to, falling into a dumpster fire.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because I remember when Disney took over Lucasfilm, and they canceled, they closed down LucasArts, and they canceled Star Wars 1313.
Yep.
There was an interview with Kathleen Kennedy a few months after that. It says, "Oh yeah, don't worry, we still have plans for Star Wars 1313. We're going to do something with that." They didn't necessarily say they were going to do a game or they were going to, make a movie or a TV series out of it, but they had some plan for that storyline. Where is it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, and not to say, I mean, granted, we were talking earlier, like how I am having almost Star Wars burnout, because there's just so damn much. It's not like I necessarily need more. I really just need good, I don't, that's kind of what's at issue here. I mean, I want to ask you, Rob, I mean, how do you feel about this, about Benioff and Weiss, getting tanked?
Good riddance.
Yeah. Fuck them right. Just let them go. And I think now it stands to reason that these guys don't have any talent anyway. For example, I don't know any Game of Thrones fans that liked, what is it, season 8 or whatever. I mean, I don't even watch Game of Thrones, and I can't help but hear from everybody how, holy shit, that last season was horrible, or at least, go ahead.
Everybody needs to give Brian a whole lot of credit for this, because he is shit on Game of Thrones for so long. Okay. But when everybody turned against Game of Thrones in the last season, he barely said a word about it. Okay. Yeah. He didn't go and rub it in everybody's faces. He just sat back and went, okay, yeah, everything pretty much went exactly as I thought it would. And like I said, he didn't even say it. He just let it go on and be what it was. He didn't have to say anything.
I'll take my bow. Thank you, sir. I was very kind to them. But
he was. Like I said, everybody needs to give you a whole lot, because you could have milked that for all it was, and you didn't.
Yeah, I could have easily come out and said, look, I've told you, and I've been telling you from season 1, this is horrible. This is horrible. This is not going to end well. And yeah, well, anyway. So, but now, actually in recent, there was a recent interview or whatever with Benioff and Weiss that had to do with the response to season 8 of Game of Thrones. And they basically came on and admitted that they were not interested in pleasing fantasy fans, that they were just trying to get, the Monday Night Football crowd. They were trying to get a completely different audience. And they, I mean, basically they came out and said, we're not fans of this kind of work. And, but they, however it worked, they were the ones that were able to successfully pitch it to HBO. And I think that's very suspect. And I mean, I see a similar problem like J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams has openly admitted he didn't really like Star Trek. And so he made Star Trek like Star Wars with his movies, Right. You're getting this from a lot of people where they more or less come out and say, no, I actually don't like this. I mean, how about the guy that was cleaning up Rogue One?
I was just going to say that. I said, he literally said that he considered his dislike of Star Wars his superpower.
Yeah.
And cleaning that movie up.
Why? And ultimately, I'm going to blame the board, the board of directors or the executives at these studios. Who's letting these guys get their hands on this shit when they openly admit they don't like or aren't trying to appeal to your fan base? Like that there's something really, really odd going on there.
Mm-hmm. I've already said who I placed this on. This is Bob Iger.
Yeah. I mean, this was a name play, bringing on Benioff and Weiss.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally a name play. I think the season 8 thing is going to haunt Benioff and Weiss for a long time with Game of Thrones, because I mean they're still feeling that sting, and that's probably part of why they're happy to get rid of them.
It would be really funny too.
Sure.
If Netflix tanked before their series came out.
Oh, that'd be so fucking good. That'd be so fucking good. I'd love that. Man, I mean, these guys...
And it's not like it couldn't happen either, because as far as I know, Netflix has never been profitable.
Yeah.
And it is still in the red.
Yeah. No, those are... Yes, that is a big conversation to have. But a great point to bring up. But I mean, bottom line, these guys are talentless hacks. And I feel like I can safely say that, because as soon as they got to Game of Thrones material that there was no reference guide for, that there was no real book for, which is like the ending of the story, right? Because that's what everybody's waiting for, George R.R. Martin to come out with the last book and all that. As soon as that happened, it just went off the fucking rails. I mean, I could argue it happened beforehand, but it just went off the goddamn rails.
Well, I'll go ahead and say it. I think even George R.R. Martin saw this coming.
Yeah.
And people are just so irate and angry about him not writing the last book. Honestly, I think he's been holding off just so that this whole TV show could be done and over with, and give it enough time for people to cleanse their palate before they read his book.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That would be the smart move on his part.
Yep. No, I agree. So yeah, this is only good, in my opinion, for Star Wars in general, and certainly on Disney's end. Like, I just would not want to be attached to these guys for a lot of reasons. I think that they're full of shit. Again, it's sad, because what's clearly happening, same with J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, all of them, even though Rian Johnson can make a good movie. I did think Looper was a good movie. Somehow the guys that are just more clever are the ones that get to make these films, and it's not the guys who actually have a great story and passion. Other than, Favreau and Filoni notwithstanding, it seems. And I don't know, hopefully Deborah Chow was for all the right reasons. So not the corporate ones. Go ahead.
It's a good point. This is, you're talking about, the people who are just all about being clever and novelty and stuff like that. And I, every time I hear that word, I think about that moment in the movie Fight Club, where they're sitting on the plane together, and what's his name makes some sort of like clever quip, and Tyler Durden goes to him, "Oh yeah, very clever. How's that going for you?"
What's that? Being clever?
Yeah, being clever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We should. If I ever get the chance, I'm going to say it to one of these asshats.
Right.
How's that going for you, being clever? Yeah, I know that line well. Yeah, I want to. Oh man. Okay, so some people were talking about this, and they were wondering, like, how do these guys like Benioff and Weiss and others who, again, it's becoming apparent, and they're not very open, but at the very least, a lot of these guys are open that what they are getting hired on to work on, be it Star Wars, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, whatever the fuck it is, that they don't actually like it. Like Benioff and Weiss made it very clear. They didn't like fantasy, and they weren't appealing to fantasy fans, okay? And so what is it that lets these guys in there? And I don't know if it's their ability to try and just mimic the beats, like you were saying earlier, Rob, of what George Lucas or Steven Spielberg or whoever, could do, if they're just, again, they're that really clever where they're able to be good copycats of some kind. But then when they're copying, they're not really creating a new genuine article that stands the test of time.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this is, and it's not confined to just Benioff and Weiss. This is almost, it's a generational problem.
Yeah.
And I am personally, technically a Gen Xer.
Right.
I'm in the tail end of that.
Sure.
And, certainly like in so far as the media is concerned, this is like in terms of generational issues, it's always been boomers versus millennials and Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly, I certainly identify more with the millennials' criticisms of the boomer generation, right. Whereas Gen X, it largely kind of gets ignored. And it's really nobody's fault other than the Gen Xers, because they've quite intentionally pretty much just lived in the shadow of the boomers and tried to, live in and recreate what they view as their greatness.
Yeah. It's a great point to bring up. In fact, I was actually, so when I was looking into this and I was like reading around the news with Benioff and Weiss and everything, particularly, I saw a pretty salient YouTube comment that I want to read, because I think it points at where there's a lot of problems, because we're not feeling the creativity with a lot of this, and just things seem off. And I thought that this comment, it speaks to what you were just saying, Rob, about it being a generational thing. And so I'm going to read it here quick and, kind of add it into this conversation. So here it is. The people who are writing stories and creating new IPs, that being intellectual property, Star Wars, Star Trek, blah, blah, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s were mostly men who had experienced the world before creating their great works. These were war veterans, race car drivers, working men, etc. So they brought their unique life experiences with them when creating new characters and worlds. The Gen X filmmakers grew up watching the movies and television shows or reading the comic books created by those men, and then went straight into making their own movies instead of experiencing life for themselves. So most of the Gen X guys' creativity is just reimagining or mashing up other people's ideas. They don't have any original ideas of their own, and they don't know how to craft a proper story. They just know how to get a reaction out of an audience. They remember something from an episode of a TV show and how it made them feel when they were kids, and they craft their stories with the intent of recreating that feeling, regardless of how it affects the narrative. Now, he goes on to say a little bit, or this commentator goes on to say a little bit that he's sure that Gen X has like its actual Spielbergs and Lucases and Stanleys and everything, but they basically, they weren't clever enough and they got sifted out.
Right.
They weren't allowed to make the movies.
Well, none of that is you have the boomer generation is pretty much in charge. They're holding all the money.
Yes.
And so, of course, they're going to go with everybody that is, holding them up as being these great minds that, created the world that we have today.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair.
So it's just that they're just, they're playing into the Gen X is creating content that gratifies the ego of the boomers.
Sure. Okay.
And the boomers see that, and whether they're making this decision consciously or unconsciously, they say, "Oh yeah, we like that," because here again, it's playing to their egos.
Yeah. Okay, so that's something. I mean, so do you feel that there's there's something to that comment that I read?
The only thing that I'll sort of push back against a little is that you don't need to have gone through a war to have experienced life.
Yeah, no, certainly not. It isn't. I mean, he brought up race car driver. Of course, that's probably pretty clearly a reference to George Lucas.
Right.
That is interesting. I mean, that's something that does put kind of your life on the line. So I don't know, but here again, a lot of those kind of opportunities to do those kinds of things have been taken away. Sure.
Because the boomers wanted to make the world safe for the children.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. Right on. I mean, I'm here, I'm happy to say, I mean, I'm a millennial, technically. I'm happy to say, okay, boomer, I know that's the thing to say. And I'll gladly say that myself, because they're the ones that sold people on that, going to war was somehow a good thing. But
I said that just this week.
Yeah. There you go.
To a boomer.
Fucking right. Okay, boomer. Whatever you think. Yeah, invest. All right, well, no, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, so I so much I want to say, but I won't. But I think there's something to that, and I mean, because I look at, I mean, that's really not unfair. Like, I look at J.J. Abrams and I'm like, boy, has that boy ever had a calloused hand? I mean, I don't want to hold that up too much, because there's a problem there. But at the same time, I kind of get it that I don't know. It does feel like there's this. It's almost like the best analogy I can come up with would be like a royal family, where some kind of dynasty where they're just inbreeding, constantly, and because of that, you end up with these malformations and just like this twisted sense of superiority. and everything, because that's the other part that's going on now too, is that these guys, I mean, like Rian Johnson, he's actively hostile.
Yes.
Towards the Star Wars fandom.
Right.
And many of these guys they're actively hostile.
Right. And it's totally unnecessary.
Yeah. It's like, no, buddy, you took your shot, deal with it. You're going to have to deal with the tomatoes, just like every other professional ever has. But go ahead.
But there's obviously people who do enjoy it. I mean, why don't you just appreciate the people who liked your movie?
Right.
Why does everybody, there's that kind of meme where the person is holding the other person's lips shut and saying, shh, just let people enjoy things. You know what? I want to change that. And I wanted to say, shh, just let people dislike things. It's okay. Yeah. Your ego can take it for somebody not conforming to everything that you love.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a real problem. There's a strange circle jerk going on. And yeah, I mean, we basically have a malformed royal family running half this shit. And
yeah, but what else is new?
Well, fair. Fair. Yeah, and I talked about this. You referenced the Q&A episode that I did. Like, nobody's willing to take a risk anymore. No one's willing to bring in some new blood and let's see what happens. I mean, that's where that whole phrase comes from, is bring in new blood, because of malformed fucking royal bloodlines. It's it's a bad thing. Bring in new blood, and it's not really happening.
Well, sometimes the new blood isn't even new blood. Like I said, I honestly think I think the people that are in charge and have the money right now will take something that will gratify their ego over something that will actually make money. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And there's something weird. I don't know. I think there's some kind of thought process going on in not just at Disney, in Hollywood in general. And I don't get it. Like, I just don't eat whether, I mean, I want to say everything's getting focus grouped to death. That's an easy and it doesn't just have to be one thing going on, but something's going on. I don't know. I don't have the answer for that right now. So anyway, do we want to add anything else on to the thankful demise of Benioff and Weiss?
No, I mean, there's more that we could say, but it just, we've hit the major points there, and it's at this point to hash it out even longer would just be gratifying our egos.
Imagine that. Imagine a couple of people getting on the internet and checking their egos at the door. How about that one? Well, anyway, yeah, fair enough. There is a lot more to say. I'm sure it's going to come up. I mean, if episode 9 does fail hard.
I don't think it will fail hard. I do think the movie, no matter how good or bad it is, it will be successful. And that's the problem.
Yes. Yeah. I almost want something to fail, Yeah.
You
actually bring it up. No, I want something to do really, really bad, and I mean, you could kind of say Solo did that, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway, well, okay. Why don't we?
I mean, that changed things, but do we necessarily know that it righted the ship yet? Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about shit, let's change gears. Let's start reviewing some stuff.
Imagine that, reviews on a Star Wars podcast.
Holy hell! I mean, wait. There's Star Wars fans that read books. Oh, oh, God damn it. As a matter of fact, there is. And this is one that I didn't think Rob was going to pick up. I read it. In fact, it came out back in August. I didn't know there was an audiobook of it. Otherwise, I would have read it already probably. But then I found out there was an audiobook of it. I ended up getting it. I ended up reading it. Rob ended up reading it. And
the only reason I ended up getting the audiobook and listening to it was because Brian took the chance on listening to the other Galaxy Edge book, and it turned out to be pretty good. And so I thought I'd give this one a chance too.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. I'm like, you know what, man, maybe Black Spire was good. This might be all right.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, I didn't bother to like read what it was about, but then I didn't think that that really mattered anyway, because like, I don't know, it's Star Wars. It's either got to be good or bad or whatever. So regardless, by Zoraida Cordova, this is the author. I have never read or heard anything else by her before. I don't think she's done anything else in Star Wars. Not that that necessarily matters, because you can come in like Claudia Gray and hit it right out of the park from the first book. But it's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate, and, well, this one did not hit it out of the park at all. I mean, I'll just say it.
Yeah, do it.
And you might be a little kinder to it, Rob, but I thought it was a steaming pile of shit. Like, as soon, in fact, frankly, it's funny because I complimented Black Spire for the fact that it did talk about relationships. But when this book opened up with like a relationship, like this woman who basically felt like, oh, you know, I like this guy, but I don't really like this guy. It's just because he had these good looks, and she's like, you know, having a hard relationship life with love and everything. As soon as the book opened up with that, I kind of knew. I was like, you know what? This is going to fucking suck. Because if you're opening up with this, this is what this book's largely going to be about. And it's probably going to read like some shitty ass romance novel. And in a million ways, I really feel like it did. In fact, right down to where the woman falls in love with the nice farm boy from her childhood. I mean, this was just a bad pastiche of, you know, like The Princess Bride or something, which is a great movie, by the way. But this book, no. And there's nothing.
No, this was, I mean, let's just be clear. This book wasn't for us.
Well, that's fair to say.
I mean,
who is it for? Go for it.
It is for people who liked and enjoyed Twilight.
Oh, ha. Yes, I think you're right. I think that's a very.
And there's nothing wrong with that. As much as I dislike those books and those movies, which admittedly I have read and seen very little of, I'll be the first to admit it.
Sure.
But I recognized from the beginning that it's not for me.
See, so I can get that. I don't think you're wrong. I think you're right that's a very great, that's a great insight to bring into this. And it makes sense for it to be labeled Galaxy's Edge because you want to bring the whole family to Galaxy's Edge, right? Including the one that's into the Twilight books. My pushback on that, though, is that that's fine, and I can accept that as long as there is just parts of the narrative that require it to be in the Star Wars universe, that like something there has to be Star Wars. And I ultimately didn't feel like any of this was Star Wars. But you could have put it anywhere. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it any different from a lot of the other Star Wars books that have come out since the new canon started.
I agree with you. I mean, and it's not just Star Wars that does it. Star Trek is just as guilty. I've reviewed books about that recently.
The reason I'm not going to be so harsh on this is that, for one, like I said, I honestly didn't hate it.
Okay.
Like I didn't have a viscerally negative reaction to it, and I understand that people who will. I mean, I recommend most of our audience. This is a book you can probably skip. Okay. That being said, I have come to recognize that who this book is for basically for young women, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, quite the opposite. I don't have a problem with it because our society pretty much has a terrible problem with hating young girls.
Sure, and I totally agree with you on that. Yes, yeah. Continue. Yeah. That basically is my point. And here again, and the other point being is something that we've talked about quite a bit is that the Star Wars universe is so big right now. It's okay for you to dislike parts of it and to really be passionate and like other parts. You're not required to like all of it. In fact, there's so much of it. There's too much of it that you can't. Yeah. There's no way that you could enjoy all of the Star Wars content that's out there. So for something to be out there that's not made for me and that I don't necessarily enjoy a whole lot, it's okay. I'm okay with it existing. Yeah, and you're totally right. Like, and that's another great insight to bring up, because it's true. Star Wars is so massive now. I mean, this is the point that we were talking about at the top of the show, which was that there's so much now to try and take in. Like it'll just consume your whole life, and you end up hating it because like you can't do anything else except consume Star Wars, you know. And because of that same fact, you can have so many different types of fandom within Star Wars, which I would say is ultimately a good thing. You know, that it's that, you know, that you can have those different types of fans. But it's not a but. It's just Disney made such a big deal about the new canon that it is canon and that all this stuff is interrelated and it has a point. And I bought into that, you know.
But does it? I mean,
no. Ultimately, it doesn't really. I mean, there's another.
Yeah.
There's another book that speaks to your other insight about that. You know, yeah, society shits on young girls, young women, and everything, and it's terrible. But there's the first Rise of Sky or Journey to Rise of Skywalker book, which is Spark of the Resistance, that came out by Justina Ireland, which is a book pretty much all about Rey flying the Millennium Falcon, more or less. Okay. Now I listened to it. I get it. It's definitely meant for a younger audience. That doesn't mean it can't be great, because there were other Journey to Star Wars books, like ones for Force Awakens, that were awesome and very enjoyable. But this one basically said nothing. And I think that's really it, is that all this stuff really says nothing about the Star Wars universe. And maybe that's where my disappointment comes in really strongly. That's fine if they want to make stuff. Like, it would be really cool. I would love to have conversations with fans that would be more into what Crash of Fate is, and they could tell me about what they learned in Star Wars. Yeah. But I know, I read the book, there's nothing that they're going to share with me, you know, that's like interesting, that affects the broader Star Wars universe. You know what I mean?
You know what this book might actually suffer for is not leaning more hard into who they were actually targeting with it. I mean, why not be even more bold and just go ahead and have Stephanie Meyer write a Star Wars book?
Yeah. You know what? I would be so, you know, it's so funny. I hate the Twilight books, but I would be so on board for that. I agree with you. That's wow. Yes. keep going if you want to. Because as soon as you said, I was like, well, yeah, why not? You know?
Yeah. Because, I mean, not only that, it would be a great gateway drug to the rest of the Star Wars universe.
Sure. Yeah.
So just you know, my problem, that'll be my biggest criticism of this book is that it didn't go far enough. It didn't
own it.
Yeah, it didn't own it. Right. You're right. And that's been the problem with Disney Star Wars books almost from the beginning. And understand, I don't have a problem with Star Wars romance stories. To date, my favorite new canon Star Wars book is Lost Stars.
Right. Which is totally for like the teenage. I mean, a teenage gal could probably read that and go crazy. Yeah.
But what that book did have is an amazing scope.
Yes. And it had ramifications for the universe as well.
And that's what I mean. It's like, and you got things in that book that we'd never, like, you got the Imperial point of view of the destruction of Alderaan.
Right. And it was well done.
It was expertly done.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and it's like, who had thought before to get into the head of a stormtrooper that way before that? Nobody had bothered to think of that. You know, we're just meant to think of stormtroopers as just the faceless, nameless, you know, automatons of the fascist, you know, empire.
Yeah.
But, you know, as inevitably it turns out, is that even people who, you know, are conscripted into, you know, fascist military regimes, I'm sorry, but they're still human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which we'll kind of play into an upcoming topic we have here just a little bit in the show. You know what? I think this kind of hit with everything you've been saying. The thing is that everything's being played so fucking safe.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the line, you know? And because, you know what? Like the Stephanie Meyer idea, I know that there'd be hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of Star Wars fans that would hate that idea. But a part of me is like, yeah, but no, but that's part of what would make it a good idea, is that you were actually like doing something different, and you were, you know, you weren't playing it safe and you were taking that risk. so much of this stuff, like, because there's nothing going on ultimately in these books. Like, it doesn't feel like you're gonna, like, nothing's at stake, and maybe that's what's so disappointing about it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And people who have a viscerally negative reaction to that's my suggestion of having Stephenie Meyer write a Star Wars book. I understand, I empathize, but what I'm going to say is give it a chance. And if you're willing to hear the argument out a little bit more, there is a YouTuber by the name of Lindsay Ellis, and she did a video called Dear Stephenie Meyer. And she started with the position that pretty much most of us agree with, that Twilight is utter complete trash. But she makes a lot of the salient points that I'm drawing upon and expounds upon them in a way that, well, I could not one up her on articulating. So I'll try to get that a video of that linked in the show notes.
Yeah.
For people to check out. I highly recommend it. Just maybe try to broaden your horizons a little. I'm not saying you have to read Twilight.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know, that it's okay for society to cater to that particular audience of young girls and not hating on it.
Right.
Because they're easy targets.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I didn't like the story, and I can get that it's not for me. I think, though, even if it had a little something that I felt like had galactic ramifications, I would have, I don't know, I think I would have walked away from it a lot kinder. Because I mean, I've been very gracious with books that have not been too, like the Ahsoka book. The Ahsoka book was clearly for a similar crowd,
right? And that's what I was going to say is that has been our criticism of a lot of these new Star Wars books.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather than keep harping on the same point over again, ad nauseum.
Yeah,
I would just like to maybe point out, like I said, maybe just try to broaden people's horizons a little bit. Not saying you have to read this book, not saying you have to read, just understand that, not everything has to be for you. It's okay. Really, it is. It's okay.
Well, Rob, the voice of reason, I tell you.
Star Wars will be just fine. Little girls can like it too.
Yeah. So, all right. So now that Rob gave us all the ice bucket challenge here, he's cooled us all off here. Yeah. No, that's fair, and I think that's a great note to end on with this. I mean, as far as both of those books, people can check them out if it's your bag, if that's how you swing. Then great. I guess it was. I'll say it. I guess that was for you. So, and we'll find out from the listeners if they remember when they're done listening to this to comment and let us know and ask and respond to our question of, do you want us to keep talking about these books? Because if you don't, we won't. So, anyway, want to shift things up, Rob? Want to go on to the next thing?
Yeah, let's do.
All right. So let's go to something that was clearly made for a very different audience, that being Star Wars Resistance. This is certainly skewing towards the much younger audience within Star Wars. Though, admittedly, there have been some good episodes throughout season 1 that Rob and I enjoyed quite a bit, particularly ones where Poe Dameron would be involved and so on. So this is definitely something that, at least in some veins, I think is being made for everybody to be able to enjoy, even if you're an older Star Wars fan and maybe you're watching it with your kids or something along those lines. But season 2, which is the last season of the show, did start this month, October 2019. We are 4 episodes deep within it. And Rob, do you want to open it up just with saying, we'll cover the episodes quick, but I mean, how do you feel about season 2 overall? 4 episodes deep, I think we can kind of gauge it. I mean, are you feeling good? Are you enjoying it? What do you got?
Yeah. Not to repeat myself, but they played it safe. They played it so safe.
Yep. Yep. I agree. That was going to be my first critique on it. was the fact that Kazuta's family, we now know, is still alive.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on. I mean, especially from the show that was willing to tell you that Jaeger basically offed his brother's family, like
Right.
in a race, not even in war. And we can't have Kazuta's dealing with his family's death. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys played it safe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, even before that, I mean, do you remember all the ideas that we had when we reviewed the ending of season 1, and we thought about all these different possibilities of where the Colossus could have ended up in the Star Wars galaxy, and
Right.
where did they drop them? They drop them within spitting distance of Dakar.
Yeah.
Oh. No, stop, please.
Yeah, they would not let it like branch out and go somewhere interesting.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that was a very boring choice. It was a nice touch to, I mean, the basically the fuck. Now I can't even, it's not a Star Destroyer, whatever the hell they call the giant things that Poe Dameron more or less blew and Paige Tico blew up in the beginning of The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Dreadnoughts. Right.
Dreadnoughts, right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dreadnoughts. Took me a second. But it was cool to see like what happened to that, like, or that Dreadnought had purpose,
Right.
after the fact. Like
Right.
that was kind of interesting, but ultimately, it ended up being a very safe and I think boring resolution because I mean, here you have this wide open spaces that you could run with, like you said, Robin, like we had talked about, and they do basically nothing with it. What a pity.
Yeah.
Would have been a great opportunity to go into the unknown regions, explore where the First Order came from.
Exactly. Yeah.
It would have been awesome.
Or even something totally, completely new.
Sure. I would have taken that.
Yeah.
Let's land with the chest. Fuck. I mean, that'd be fine too.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something we've never heard of or seen before. Introduce a whole new aspect of the Star Wars universe that nobody's seen yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the Star Wars universe is, if it is, and I think it can be, a universe of infinite possibilities.
Right.
And you keep on dropping people into I mean, you set up these great opportunities to do just that, and then you just drop into situations where it's just a rehash of things we've already seen and done before.
Yeah. I do feel like this show overall has gone through a lot of identity crises, like or direction.
Still is.
Yeah. Like I think originally it had different plans of doing different things with the Aces throughout season 1, and season 2 has not helped, because now it turns out Griff Holleran's a fucking cadet, more or less. Like he's a joke when he was supposed to be the total badass. Yeah. And now that we finally get him flying, he apparently isn't like a trained flyer. I thought that was stupid.
It's kind of like, Disney was listening to us wanting more of the Aces.
Uh-huh.
And what was it, episode 2 or is it 3?
Yeah.
I think it's episode 3.
Right.
And they gave us more Aces, but they dropped it into like just the utterly most bland, filler, predictable story you could possibly come up for the Aces.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us more Aces, but no, not that way.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, and that said, like, I think that they didn't know whether I think Disney Plus changed whether or not the show. There's no way the show was only supposed to go 2 seasons. 3 or 4, I would think at least it probably originally had in mind.
And I get the sense that they pulled the plug on it, and then the showrunners decide, okay, I mean, like, they decide, okay, well, we've only got so much time to wrap this up, so we're going to play it safe and, at least do something that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm just overall, I mean, it's fine what I'm watching. I will admit that, like, I watched this at 2x speed in VLC, because again, I don't know that I'm going to get anything like really amazing that speaks to the Star Wars universe overall. Yeah. There's nothing technically wrong with it, and I can get the audience that it's for. But they've had opportunities to make it something much more than it is. And so far, I just feel like they've really dropped the ball. And I don't know where they could take it from here, where it would really pick up well.
I mean, I somewhat enjoyed the 4th episode. I think that was probably the best episode of the the 4
where they're
episodes.
going after that big beast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Hunt
thought
on Celsor 3.
that,
Yeah.
that was at least entertaining.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny. That was yeah. Though, the head of the Colossus, that's the same voice actor that does fuck. That does Hondo, right?
Oh, is it?
I think it's the same guy.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because all I hear now is Hondo's voice every time he talks, and
Well,
that kind of takes me out of it.
Thank you, Brian. I had connected that, and now I can't unhear it.
I'm pretty sure that it's the same dude, and I'm just like, oh, god damn it. And I'm just waiting for for Hondo to come out and for
man,
it's amazing how much I love that character now of Hondo.
Yeah.
He was so annoying back in the day, but now it's like, oh no, I can't wait for him to come back. But
why not bring him into Resistance? I mean,
yeah, he's alive. We know he's alive on Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, why not have done that? Why not have dropped the Colossus into Batu?
That would have been great. Yeah, I would have taken that. Fine, make it a Galaxy's Edge tie-in. I'm down for that. Oh, holy fuck. They got nothing. God damn it. But yeah, the 4th episode was fairly, I agree with you, that was fairly enjoyable, going after that beast, even though it is interesting. You go from Save the Whales, or the not the Pargils, whatever the fuck, the space whales.
Yeah.
Purgles. Yeah, save them in Rebels, and then in
kill the whales.
Yeah, Resistance is like, no, just give me a battery. Here, I'm going to plug into the droid to make sure I can kill this fucker. It's like, wait a minute. I feel a very confusing message here, Disney. Oh, well.
For a second, I really thought that episode was going to go somewhere really dark, because when the girl's dog sneaked out of her apartment, I thought, oh no, somebody's going to eat the dog.
Right, they're going to cook them because everybody's starving on the station.
Right. Yeah.
Which, again, that's something you could have gone with. I mean, that was very serious. Like, everybody was going to leave and everything. People are starving and all this stuff. And, I mean, the elements are there to make this something that can appeal to a very broad audience and that can have very good ideas. And, yeah, I feel like they kind of keep dropping it. It's so sad. But, well, we have a few more episodes. I think we have at least 4 more episodes to go. I think this is supposed to wrap up by the time Rise of Skywalker comes out. I could be wrong about that, but I think season 2 is pretty short. We'll see.
I don't know. I haven't looked up the episode count. Whether you could be right. Which
yeah.
I mean, hopefully there'll be some diamonds in the rough here, but I'm not expecting too much.
Sure. No, fair enough. And again, they've really just completely dropped it with the aces, because now the aces we know aren't even badasses because Kazuda and Yeager have to train them. That was really disappointing. So, Well, whatever. Okay. So, anything more you want to get on with Star Wars Resistance Season 2?
No, I said my piece on that.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, well, I'm actually going to hold off on fan production of the month. We're not going to.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. Well, we're not going to cover it this time. And the reason being is because I'm going to hold it. I have a lot of them lined up. Rob and I can look at them in our show notes. But these might be the only things good left in Star Wars, so I'm going to save them for now. But do you want to? Are you good for the question of the month, Rob? You want to get into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, very simple question of the month, and it's something that came up after watching the Mandalorian trailer, because I really enjoyed so much seeing a Mandalorian being a bounty hunter again and doing it so well. And Werner Herzog's little dialogue certainly helped with that. Painting this guy as a badass and a badass. Well, as you've said often and very rightly, Rob, boy, the Star Wars universe, what a shitty place to live. It's everywhere is horrible, it seems. So, so it got me thinking about bounty hunters again. And, there was a time, certainly in the 90s, where everybody kind of had their favorite bounty hunter. And really, there were people who were fans of Greedo. Greedo fandom was a huge deal in the 90s. Or you had people that like Bosk, or they like Dengar, or they like IG-88, or obviously Boba Fett was one of the biggest characters of his time. So I guess the question that I'm putting forward, Robin, if you want to go first, go for it. But favorite bounty hunter? I mean, Star Wars has a real history with this. What do you got?
Um, I'm gonna cheat.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so like, Cad Bane, I think is the coolest bounty hunter.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, nice.
But, but, I'm gonna for my favorite bounty hunters, I'm gonna cheat again because it's actually two,
Okay.
and it's Zuckuss and Forlom.
Oh, yeah.
Because they just have such a great backstory.
Yeah. Good call.
They're so interesting
Yeah.
and really kind of they're not utilized enough. Like they really need like their own book or story or
Which they had plenty of in the old expanded universe.
Yeah,
It was
yeah. I
great.
mean,
Yeah.
like the there was like a whole bounty hunter anthology of books and stuff that was just really terrific, and that's where I really got into to their backstory, and can't recommend those books enough, even though they're legends now. But yeah, Forlom and Zuckuss are just such interesting, cool features, and like the way that Forlom was kind of like reprogrammed, and Zuckuss having this sort of like mystical aspect to him.
Yeah.
And he almost uses the Force in a way. It's really cool.
Yeah. No, I'll second that. That is that's a great choice. I wouldn't have even thought about that. But yeah, now I'm thinking back to the Tales from the Bounty Hunter book. That was phenomenal. That was one of the best books of its day. That's a great pick. And I agree with you. Cad Bane, probably the coolest. In fact, I know he's a character that most people are just dying to finally see in live action. Basically, him and Dr. Aphra, I think most people want to see very much in live action. I would have said Boba Fett, but Boba Fett's character has changed dramatically from the character that I think, including myself, that we fell in love with in the 90s. Who was just like a cool guy, sure. But that really, really did change quite a bit in the 90s. So I'm not going to say him. And as cool as I think Jango Fett's performance that we got in episode 2 was, and certainly a lot of the old EU material and the Bounty Hunter game for PS2 and GameCube I just thought was top notch. I had a lot of fun with that. I could kind of go with Jango Fett. But I love IG-88. I thought that, and even recent stories that they've done with him, like during that Age of Rebellion, was it in the special of that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, where they had, you kind of find out that you never know where IG-88 is, and he might even be using like multiple parts of him. He'll even let himself get destroyed.
Yeah,
as long as his head's. Go ahead.
There's even been multiple versions of him. There's like
Right.
an IG-88 A, B, C, and D.
Yes.
There's like 4 of them, and maybe more for all we know.
Yeah, I think he is so terrifying, and in the right way, more so than like 000 or any of those characters that have been in Dr. Aphra. Like IG-88, you really never know where he's going to be. And, there are other droids that kind of look like him, and he could even pretend to be them. And, next, out of nowhere, you're dead. And, I think it's just such a brilliant character. And again, genuinely terrifying. And also the fact you can't really bargain with him. Because he's a droid.
Right.
So, he doesn't fall prey to a lot of the other, double crossing and other things that can happen with bounty hunters. So, yeah. And I remember even having the action figure when I was a kid. And I always thought he was the coolest action figure. Like IG-88 blew away so many G.I. Joes when I was like 6 that I lost count. So yeah, just a great character.
Which is really cool because I think the shots that we got, I know it's not IG-88, but the IG-88 type droid that they have in the Mandalorian trailer pretty much is performing in the way that we always imagined he would fight like.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, we know it's not IG-88, but like it's the semblance of the character, just like I think the Mandalorian himself is definitely playing off of what we thought of Boba Fett.
Right.
And I think that if you're going to hit some beats, those are the right beats to hit.
Right. Right.
for making a dark Star Wars universe. I always felt like IG-88 was part of that darker aspect of Star Wars, and that's why I love it.
But that was just such a great shot in that trailer where you see him and his like head spinning around in different directions, and he's
and the blasters are going everywhere.
I mean, and here again, it's just it's so cool, and like here again, playing up on those really kind of just like old school spaghetti western gunfight, sort of things. Just so cool.
No, I agree. So I'm excited to see something in that vein in that show. So I think that basically wraps up. Though I totally agree with you. Cad Bane, as far as cool factor, it's totally Cad Bane. I'm totally on that. So I think that basically wraps up the concept of, or the end point of this show, which is that, boy, the Mandalorian better be fucking good, and it's probably going to be. So, so that's what we got. So anyway, Rob, anything else you want to get out there? Otherwise, we'll wrap this one up.
I'm good to wrap it up. Yeah.
All right. So that is it. We have some things we're excited for as far as Star Wars goes, and other things where we're like, holy shit. Maybe we could do the old Star Wars quote of I've got a bad feeling about this, or maybe a better quote. Here's the best quote to go with from Han Solo. Don't get excited. So we'll end it with that. Anyway, Rob, always the best of times. We'll wrap this one up, and we'll see you all for TIE Fighter Renegades when we will review the part of the Mandalorian, at least next month. And we'll see all of you on the other side. Woo!